Welcome to the Happy Fools podcast. I'm your co-host Trevor, broadcasting from my office for once, joined as always by my co-host Alfredo.
That's office times 2. I'm trying to get this microphone going. I think the last time we spoke, it sounded pretty good.
Oh, it sounded
I even
beautiful.
liked it, and I don't like a lot of things, but I think this one is okay. What do you think?
I think it sounds dead sexy.
Well, I'm just gonna get a new microphone. That's it. I'm done. I don't know. I always keep saying that, but
You're set up for shows on the road right now for singing. When are you going to sing for us?
When I get a better microphone, at least. Let's start with a fucking microphone.
How have you been, man? It seems like it's been a little while.
It's been a while, man. Has it? Yeah, about a week.
I mean, yeah, it's only been a week, but
No. But in our lives, a
lot's happened.
A lot of shit happens.
Yeah, and a week without Happy Fools is a rough week. So
yeah, I don't know how you guys do it. I can barely stand it. So yeah. So what's up with that store? Is it kicking? I don't even know what the fuck we're selling.
Store's kicking. It's working. I've got a few things up. I'm going to upload a lot more. We're doing our part 2 with Cro-Magnon Carl tonight, and
nice.
I'll have some artwork uploaded for him.
Nice, cool.
Well.
If you want me to sign anything, I can do signing. My signature is pretty badass, so just like my face.
I don't know if any of our listeners can afford a signed Cachanilla pillow. The pillow is already $40. I don't know how much it is.
It's
actually
nice and comfortable, but thank you. I'll give you permission for it to use my face.
If you don't know, Alfredo's talking about our merch store, which the link's in the episode and show descriptions and will be on YouTube as well. So go check it out. Also, feel free to donate to the show. How was your week, man?
Good. Currency only, money or whiskey?
You could, currency only at this point. Yeah. Once I get the PO box up there, people can mail us, whiskey, gold, whatever they want.
Yeah, it's been so I'm a little disconnected this week because I just work is overwhelming. But I hear things now and then, or from Anyway, are planes falling? Is that what's happening?
I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if it's like the same normal amount of stuff that happens and
Are we just hearing it more?
Or if it really is an uptick. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I'm still fucking flying. I don't give a shit.
People always say like, oh, what I just said. They say, oh, we're just hearing about it more. It's totally normal for there to be 8 plane crashes a day. And I'm like, that doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Telling me it's
I'm about
normal
to fly.
Where are you going?
Hopefully by then they won't be falling.
Where are you going? Is this a Cancun? Okay, cool. My boss is flying right now to DC, into that DC airport, so he was a little nervous, but
ooh,
he's got to go review some grants. I had a grant reviewed this morning, so I'll know in a couple of days if people hated it or not.
And you published, I understand, 2 articles since we spoke, or 1?
Our lab's had a bunch of papers come out. I'm just a co-author on those. I'm not first author on any of those, but I've got some.
Your name is in it, though.
Names in it. I've got some first author stuff coming out soon. Everyone at work is like freaking out about RFK right now, and I'm like, why? Like we don't do pharmaceutical research. Like what? We don't manufacture red dye. If anything, we do the kind. Why?
Money.
Yeah, but no, of course, because of money. But I'm just saying, like, we do the kind of work that I would expect not to get cut by RFK. Like, we don't test drugs. We don't.
Like, it's legit.
It's like basic science, like causal mechanism stuff that I would think he would want to fund to the extent he's even involved in that. So I don't know. Everybody's a liberal where I work.
Yeah, it gets tiring, actually.
Which is fine. It's okay. I mean, liberal used to be good. Liberal used to be like anti-corporate, anti-pharmaceutical, anti-war.
That was all that.
Pro, civil liberty. Like that was the 90s liberal. That was fun. But now they suck. No offense.
Yeah, they what? How does it go? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I guess so. Is that what happened?
I don't know, man. But he went to shit. I tell you that. dude. And that episode about Tucker Carlson
Oh yeah, did you like it?
on Ukraine, wild.
Yeah,
I liked it.
he's
Short and sweet.
got some pretty crazy ideas lately.
And what do you have on the screen? Is that for us? Is that for when Carl comes in?
No, that's for you. I want to confront you about this issue.
Confront. There's another picture. No, this is the original one. The one that I saw. No, there's another one. Even the. Anyway, tell us what it is. What am I seeing?
So I'll explain the one I think you're referring to.
Are we recording right now?
Yeah, we're recording.
Live video?
Yeah. You knew.
Hi, guys.
Don't act like you didn't know. You knew. So we talked we talked several weeks ago about Project Stargate, and which is when this is another interesting thing to bring up. So the CIA had that project called Project Stargate where they did like astral projection and telepathy. And
Oh,
all
yeah,
these
I
weird
remember
stuff.
that.
And now there's a new Project Stargate, which is the cancer vaccines, and it's like they can't choose a new name?
Oh, no way. Is that what it is?
Like, I'm like, is it a Google search algorithm thing to get it so the old Project Stargate doesn't pop up?
Oh, interesting. Maybe.
but
And is that through mRNA technology or what?
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, after they did all the trials with the COVID vaccine things.
Yeah, I'm a little like, first of all, I don't really love the idea of like tech entrepreneurs getting into
You're right.
this kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't know if that makes me old fashioned, but
I like old fashioned, man.
and
Yeah.
it's not really I don't know. You are talking about hijacking cellular machinery to produce engineered proteins.
Hell no.
And it's
As long as I have longitudinal studies on that, then I'll be
yeah,
okay.
sure. Yeah, give me a 5-year safety study.
Let me see what happens in 5 years. Oh shit, that's what happened. No thanks.
Yeah, well done. And again, ideally a third party doing the placebo-controlled study.
Correct.
Not
Correct.
a pharma. Anyway,
I'd rather do natural. That's why I'm gonna start fasting my semi-annual fasting.
I like that.
Next week. So I'm gonna go into a little journey, 7 days.
Ooh, so we should probably not have an episode.
I actually do want to have an episode.
At what point? At what point in your fast?
Well, we can do. I get stupid about 72 hours.
Okay.
So, and I can only work out in the first between the 20 after 24 or 48 hours, and then I get like super tired. It's weird, but we can do it. I don't know, anytime after 48 hours.
Okay.
That way I can really be out there.
We'll get you at peak madness. Anyway, so let's do that. That'd be fun. I would enjoy that. We'll do a super heavy topic at your peak fast. Anyway, so back to this Project Stargate.
Back to your project. Yeah.
So anyway, the original Project Stargate was this astral projection, remote viewing stuff. And remember, we read that transcript, and the guy was on Mars.
Oh yeah,
and there was
that's right.
There was a civilization on Mars, like 2,000 years ago or whatever.
And we were laughing because he was stripping. Right.
It was pretty weird. Yeah, we were kind of. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I don't know that we were mocking it. It's just like it was out there, And then so there was this other conspiracy that came years later where they saw like what appeared to maybe be a face on Mars. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, and then but they saw it from some other angles, and it didn't really look like a face after all.
In Sidonia, I think it's called.
Yeah, what is it actually? It is Sidonia, but is it like the Sidonia Plateau or something?
We sound like imbeciles right now because we're supposed to know everything about Mars.
No, I don't think that's true. I hope that's not the expectation. But this is like walking distance from that face with the picture on the screen.
No way. Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah, and I brought it up, and you said that it's a doctored image, which you're right. The popular image on the right here is totally enhanced by NASA to make it look very much like a square. And then the image on the left is the original image. And then there's like a skeptical version of the image, which only includes this bottom left triangle.
Right. That's the one that I saw.
Yeah.
The top right, it's all absent.
Yeah, well, no, this is, yeah, exactly. This is there, but they don't show it. They show this like triangle right here. And so this picture on the left is the actual image. And that, dude, that's a freaking square.
The one on the left?
Yeah.
I
What?
guess.
What shape does that look like? These are 4 perfect right angles, man. Go on. How I don't know how to see
I
that any
see
other way.
one perfect left angle at 90 degrees. That's what I see.
Which
The
one's
rest are like,
which one's not 90? Which of these 4?
I believe the one on the right,
This one
lower
is,
right.
what do you think that is? 91?
It could be, just because. Oh man,
Get your protractor out.
no, they all. If it's a square, they're all 90.
I mean, I guess you could maybe argue it's 91.
What do you think it is? A base of a pyramid for
I
a
have
pyramid?
I have no speculation beyond this other than that
How
is,
big is this thing?
I think it's 2 miles wide.
So it's not like our pyramids here.
No. I mean, how big is the base of a pyramid? It's not 2
See,
miles, I don't think.
have
But
no idea. See, sorry, I should have known.
I can pretend like I just remembered it all of a sudden while I Google
But we
it.
know they're square.
The pyramids? Yeah.
Yeah, we know they're square.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So-
mean, the guy, okay, this Project Stargate guy mentioned there being pyramids on Mars.
Really?
So it is kind of an interesting coinkydink, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you think we come from Mars, you know what I think, dude?
What?
I think version 1
Yeah.
happened in Mars. It was a total fuck up. And somehow panspermia happened, and then we ended up here on Earth.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go back to that Project Stargate thing, that's exactly what he says, right?
Oh, really?
A group of them goes out to explore. They find another planet close by that's not as hospitable. There's a lot of geothermal and lava type activity situation going on,
Mm-hmm.
but that they move.
Yeah. I mean, we're not too far out. We're what, 2 years? Our time or our speed, should say.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they had-
2 years, what?
For right now, if we were to go like SpaceX,
6
it takes
months.
us what, 2 years?
6 months.
No way.
Yep. But only at a launch window that happens once every 2 years.
Oh, I see. 6 months. So if this guy's the ones that we're seeing right now in Mars, they had advanced technology. I'm sure that was faster.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So we're Martians.
hey, we went from you
That's
not
cool.
believing it was a perfect 90 to
No. So I'm not saying
I'm
I
off
believe
balance.
it. I'm just saying
I'm off balance.
No.
it could
I'm
be.
not saying I believe it. I'm saying that's a theory.
Could be. Yeah, that could be. I mean, why not? I think it's fun. I think it's a fun
Find me
theory.
another fucking square, man, and then we'll talk.
So 2 squares is the magic number for you.
Yeah, because squares happen. Have you seen pictures on Earth that happen naturally?
No, I haven't. I mean, I'm not.
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
I don't doubt you.
I'll send you some of the stuff, like a cliff in Ireland, I think, and it happens. It happens naturally. People are freaking out. It's like, oh man,
and
90
so, like,
degree angle,
what kind of
it's hu-
forces
Well, right there you have wind and water.
in Ireland? Wind and water.
Yeah. I think it's in Ireland. I'll find it for you.
Okay.
But it happens naturally here on Earth.
Naturally occurring.
Yeah.
What would you call it?
Oh, you're searching?
Square
Dude, it's true. I saw it.
megalith, or what would you call it? Naturally occurring square.
Earth anomalies or Earth. Or geographically. There are like 4 places here on Earth. And it looks like someone cut it.
All right. Well, we'll
And we're all good. Hey, when is Carl showing up? It's
in 10 minutes.
oh cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Can I share the screen? Did you look for him?
Yeah, I can't find it. Are you looking?
No, but
You
we can
look.
talk.
You look. I'll talk.
So tell me what you think this is, man. What do you think it was?
Well, dude, I don't know. I mean, it's just any speculation would be insane, right?
Anything goes here, man. Come on.
So it could be naturally occurring. So wind and probably not water, right? I guess if you go back far enough, there's water on Mars. The thing about it though is I don't really understand how it would be preserved.
With that atmosphere, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not that crazy of a thing. It strikes me as either a very odd natural phenomenon or some kind of foundation for something.
It would be cool if they had pyramids.
Yeah, a pyramid would be pretty sweet. And I looked it up. A pyramid's 800 feet ish, 800 to 900 feet ish, but each side. So this is like many times larger.
Oh, so we have mini pyramids.
Yes, and you know gravity's a lot less on Mars, so it is kind of interesting because this crazy astral travel guy, like the beings he encountered, were very large.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting with the whole, you know, the giant thing we like to talk about, which we'll be talking about tonight potentially.
So you think Martians were giants?
I think if they existed, they were probably, they were probably pretty big because gravity's, I think, 30%.
Yeah.
So you would expect everything to be about 3 times bigger. If evolution more or less worked the same in both places or whatever, you know.
Let's see. Right angles at Cantwell Cliffs. Picture by Trisha. I don't know.
Can you share your screen?
Show it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, how?
Let me stop my share.
And do I share?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, shit. Where's Zoom? I can cut this out.
Boomer Talk. Welcome to Boomer Talk with Trevor and Alfredo. In today's episode, we'll be sharing a screen.
What a fucking idiot, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, man. Let's see.
Here we go.
Are we good? We're good?
It's happening. Okay, I see a circle.
Thanks. Right there. Bam.
Okay, yeah, what is this?
That's a right angle at Cantwell Cliffs.
So we got 1 right angle or 4?
Well, 1.
Well, it's 1
and
up.
then we have a straight line here.
Let me see it.
Bam.
See, this just isn't impressive to me. I
know it isn't.
refute your refutation.
based on observation only? Man. How about this kind of rocks here? Well, that's not true.
No.
But how about this quartz? No, that's 90.
Yeah, but it fits in the palm of my hand. It's not a 2-mile.
It's fucking Mars, dude.
Geological structure.
Nothing happens like here.
You can't just show me a crystal that I could buy at the store.
Man. Well, I'm gonna need to get back on that, but it's a crystal. Let me see here. Damn it.
I mean, listen, I'm open-minded to it.
No, I
just
saw
be
it somewhere,
natural,
but right now it's DuckDuckGo and they suck. But I'll get back to you.
We'll find. So
something. You didn't like that? You didn't like that?
Yeah, your debunking didn't do it for me. It's okay. It's obviously it's crazy, right? That there would be structures on Mars. However, we know it was habitable, right?
Yes.
If you are like a rationalist type of person, you would believe that a planet in the habitable zone of a star with water, with oxygen, which Mars had, why wouldn't life evolve there? If life evolved here, they have a moon just like us. Why wouldn't life evolve there? Doesn't make it. What's like I don't understand why it is so irrational to think there could have been life on Mars at some point in the past.
I want to know what happened to their atmosphere.
Yeah.
If they had water, and that's what I'm saying. That something happened with version 1.
There's this whole other conspiracy that now this I think has been, debunked, but there's this conspiracy that there's a certain radioactive element that's in very high traces in the soil that's indicative of like a nuclear event.
What? Like they blew themselves up?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I wouldn't doubt it though. We're so dumb. If we were version 1.1, like,
yeah,
I believe it, dude. I can't find it. So we'll stick to yours. That's fine.
For people watching, the screen's gonna look weird for a minute until.
Why?
I don't know what I'm doing with video. So I have
Oh, I
OBS,
see.
and basically I have to like highlight what portion of my window I want to record.
Yeah.
And when a screen isn't being shared, it changes the shape. So once Carl gets in here and shares a screen, we'll look normal again.
Boomer.
I know. So, dude, I'm not like, I should be better at technology, but I'm not. Not at this
Dude.
kind of stuff. But anyway, so I don't know if it's ancient aliens or what, but since we're talking about ancient hominids tonight on Earth, I thought we'd mention the possibility of ancient cultures on Mars.
Dude, what do you think? How do you think society is gonna react if we indeed find like traces of life?
Oh man, what a good. I don't know. It could be like when the New York Times did that report that there were UFOs and no one really noticed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's true because people are so hung up on themselves now.
Yeah, it's just not. You hear crazy headlines every day. It's like nobody really gets worked up. Oh,
Yeah.
there used to be some old, super boomers on Mars. Who cares?
Right. Yeah, bring my mortgage rate down. That's what I care about.
Yep,
I can't afford a house.
That's what the conservatives will say. The Democrats will say they probably died of global warming.
Mm-hmm.
Let them be a lesson to us. We need to act.
See, guys, climate change. See what happens.
See what happens when
you do that. Climate change.
When you launch rockets.
But, do you believe? Speaking of space, I think we already spoke about this. But I had one convert, I think, 1 week ago or two, about we actually went to the moon or not.
Oh, let's hear it.
Who
are you having this conversation with?
I used to believe that we did, but now when you look at the logistics, the type of hardware.
See, Alfredo, so this topic has came up in the past, and you've been pretty harsh.
Have I?
Yeah, about the possibility that maybe we did not go. And somebody got in your ear. Somebody, yeah, and somebody got in your ear, and they gave you some stuff, and they got you. You're hooked.
No. I don't. I still believe that we didn't go. So I convinced them.
Oh, I thought you thought we for sure went.
No, dude.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know you after all this time as my co-host.
No, and you're probably right.
No, let's hear it. I don't have a strong opinion either way. I want to know what the
you
conversation.
Don't have a strong opinion. Yeah, well, that's okay.
Well, because some of the logistical stuff is debunkable. Like what people say, like the Van Allen belts. Like there's, the path that the rocket took, it didn't go through the Van Allen belts. Stuff like that.
And the gas, dude.
What's
like
the gas
actual
one?
Fucking.
What's
See what I'm saying?
What's the gas one?
Oh, like Elon Musk is saying that we need so much gas to,
Well, that's
fuel.
a whole different thing. It's because the ship's reusable.
I see.
So you need to have a bunch of fuel to land.
Right.
I'm not. I get what you're saying. I'm on board. It's hard to believe that freaking tin can
had like hardware or software less than a dishwasher or a washer right now.
Oh yeah, our calculator in elementary school is like 100 times more powerful than that thing. I'm with you, man. I don't know. It's so crazy. It's like it does seem like Russia would have been the first. The Soviet Union would have been the first people to call our bluff if that were the case, but.
They were all in it.
So you think we were allied with the Soviet Union?
Yes.
To deceive that? See, that's a weird. You got to explain that to me.
Oh, dude. People think countries are like free states and they actually exist, but their power's way higher, man.
Okay. So we're talking
it's like the World Economic Forum.
We're talking puppet masters now. I got you.
They run the show.
Oh,
and they move the pieces.
It just seems so elaborate.
And then I see. And then you see the covers of the magazine.
Tell me.
No, maybe I should bring it up next time.
Well, this is exciting. I'm excited about the future.
This. No, like they have China. They have like missiles, and they have radioactive signs, and then they have Trump on one side, and like there are people who decipher the covers of the World Economic Magazine.
Really?
Or The Economist, one of those. Yeah, no, it's a World Economic. Yeah, dude.
Interesting.
Come on, they run the show.
Yeah, no, I could get on board with that for sure. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one to accept.
because of everything that went down, the Cold War.
Uh, it just seems so, because like once you get there, you really do have to believe that everything's fake,
Yeah,
which it
pretty.
might be. I mean, it
I
might
mean,
be.
they did hire Kirby, Kubrick, right?
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, it's right, Kubrick. So that and then people they've demonized, or we or the media has demonized Russia. They're nice people, man.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, our so we're switching gears now to Russia though, kind of, right?
No, I mean that was a whole race.
Oh, like back then we're
Yeah,
having
and
in
then
this
like,
race with
oh,
Russia.
we have to be against Russia, all these things, communist, and that's fine. We believe in capitalism.
I just don't really get why. Like, what does faking the moon landing do? I know people they have a meet like control or I don't know, but just like technically, how does it? Who does it help?
How it helped us, I guess.
How so?
Um, how it pushed us.
Like, I guess you
That
could
we're number
say,
one, man.
yeah, but what is? I mean, why did the puppet masters care about that? These so-called puppet.
Right.
I just
Right.
doesn't.
So right.
It doesn't all fit, and maybe it's something I can't possibly understand. It's so super complicated and crazy, but I just can't get there. It takes me to a dark place.
Remember, it wasn't Russia back then. It was the Soviet Union.
Right, right.
And the Soviet Union back then was atheist primarily.
Yes.
Right. And so when they dismantled that, Russia became primarily Catholic.
You know what Yuri I forget his last name. The first guy who went into space,
Mm-hmm.
when he came back, he said, I went to the heavens and there was no God."
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, because he was the first man in space. Actually, he didn't say it. Khrushchev said it.
Okay.
But they said, I went to the heavens and there was no God," because Soviet Union was atheist and we were, I guess you'd say,
At least he
Christian.
didn't say they saw little things in the moon like Buzz and the other guy, right?
Yeah. So what's yeah, what's that about? I don't
Oh,
see.
that
I
they
don't
were
know.
that he saw, or some beings that they were talking to him, and then they say, "Don't ever come back to the moon." That's why we never went back.
But we did. We went like 18 times.
After that,
This sounds
well,
flimsy, man.
that's so it's all bullshit. Like, it's so confusing. I encourage anyone to look more into the moon landings and all the confusion, and to see what's the ultimate goal
We'll
of
have
going
to
to the
do
moon. Hey, Carl.
we'll have to do an actual episode on this, man. I'm so
Yeah,
intrigued.
dude.
Thank
Yeah, I know.
goodness Carl is
We
here to
left so
save us.
many open holes.
Carl, we're discussing the moon landing. We're ruining your episode by discussing the moon landing before you get here.
What did you guys? What's the conclusion? What's the hypothesis?
Alfredo,
Trevor,
I think we went,
I don't think we did.
and Alfredo doesn't think we went.
You guys don't think we went to the moon?
I think we did. Carl, can you share your screen just so all of our faces are on camera? It changed now that there's a third person in the Zoom. Yeah, be the tiebreaker for us. What happened? What's the situation?
Um, well, I think we went to the moon first and foremost. I don't, I've heard this so many times from people. I don't know why I would doubt it. We have the landing sites. There's trash that they left up on the moon still. I think the questionable thing is why we stopped
Alfredo's shaking
going.
his head.
I think the questionable thing is why we stopped going. Like why did they stop going to the moon? It's stupid. Like it's a huge innovation. It's a huge accomplishment. They say they lost the you know the wherewithal to do it because somebody deleted files or some
Oh, how
bullshit like
convenient.
that.
Yeah, not just the
Like
files, the actual
Yeah, it's just
equipment.
NASA just randomly
I am
lost
not a
it.
guy that's going to be to like sort of like provide any shelter for NASA for the Nazi space program.
Oh yeah,
Uh, like
Von
let's be
Braun.
real. But, well, yeah, I mean, like ever since it was started because of Nazi ideology and the wherewithal of people to steal patents from, you know, Americans like Robert Goddard, like for crying out loud, the rocketry program that Germany, you know, apparently almost won the war with was basically, invented by Robert Goddard.
I,
And when they came over, they made fun of us because we didn't know that. And they didn't know that they stole all of his patents. And they literally, anyway, don't get me started.
oh, this is great. This is great. I don't know Robert Goddard, but I don't want to
You know
interrupt.
Robert Goddard?
I don't want to interrupt you from finding a way to share your screen so the viewers can see your face.
Yeah, we're just shooting.
You guys don't see my face?
It's
you see the video?
Carl. This is like the most boomer situation. I'm embarrassed to even explain it. The way I'm recording, the only way I can see all of our faces is if someone is sharing their screen. So since I know you will eventually be sharing your screen, the task now falls on you. Sorry,
Trevor. Did you just baptize yourself, or you just transfer yourself into the boomer section?
Yeah, I figured I might as well join.
Did that work?
What happened to?
But you guys are Gen X,
right? So you skip like Gen X, and because you're a millennial, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm an old millennial.
Yeah, old. Yeah, you're right.
I'm almost a Gen X.
Someone was trying to correct me because I call them Gen X, Gen Z, and they're like, no. So there are three faces. I'm like, shit.
Wait, Alfredo, you're definitely what, Gen X, or do you think you're Gen?
Yeah, I raised myself, man.
X, you're X, right?
Yeah, all the way. I made my own
Trevor,
food. I grew up at 9. I was driving at 10. You know the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't even know. I really don't know much about your background. I'm just guessing.
Okay. Yeah.
It's wild. We could do a whole documentary about Alfredo's background.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's
who's Goddard? Who's Goddard?
Robert Goddard is the father of space rocketry. He was Robert Goddard. All of his research took place in Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh man. Okay.
Like when the German
are we talking
program got set up, it got set up at Robert Goddard's lab in Roswell, New Mexico.
Are we talking Goddard?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think there's a space center named after him, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. Duke, why don't you go lie down?
Well, as always, we'll never know. I think we went to the moon. Although I do understand the skepticism. I get it. There are a lot of weird things about it. And of course, it's just a miraculous thing to even do as a species.
I mean, there's a lot of weird things about the moon.
Oh, yeah. It's hollow.
Oh, no.
Let's not.
Why are there craters on the close side of the moon? I still don't. I mean, I'm probably going to sound like an idiot later on because somebody's going to be like, dude, there's a clear reason why the craters look like the same on the backside as they do the front side. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, are the asteroids just like kind of zipping around and like caught in the moon's gravitational pull and hit it vertically? Like,
I don't think
I don't understand it. I'll be honest with you. And I know recording this was probably a mistake because there's probably a real reason that I don't know.
Well, I think on that one,
man, can only make you stronger.
I think the Earth is not, like, in terms of all the potential vectors that an asteroid could strike that side of the moon, the Earth doesn't really represent a very large shield.
No.
If that makes sense. So that's why I would say there could be craters. What's weird about the craters?
What do you mean it's not a large shield? It's much larger than the moon. It's a huge shield for the moon. The moon's so much smaller than the Earth. It's a huge shield.
But I think if you look at
gravitationally, it'd be much stronger. Like anything that would come our way like the shield is the moon. It's like this thing orbiting us. It's smaller in terms of gravity and its pull. It's not going to collect as much stuff. If it's big, it's only going to find us.
Maybe it was the crater diggers. The crater diggers of the moon's
we have one coming culture. Up anyway in 2032 or 36 apparently. That it's 2.5 now.
Yeah, the probability is pretty high right now that it's going to hit.
Yeah, it's 1 out of 42, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
You've taken worse odds than that in Vegas, man. That's not good. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, it's only 2% anyway. We already know where it's at, so let's, and we have quite a few years to take care of it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
Something else will get us before then, I
in the
suspect.
meantime, I want to talk about our ancestors.
Yeah, you want to make that transition? All right, let's do
Who
it.
were the Anunnaki? Now we can finally
Yeah,
talk about a
let's worry about
serious
the people
topic.
on Earth.
Yeah, give me a few weeks and I'll get my shit together.
Anyway, we've heard good stuff from from our part one, though, huh, Trevor?
Oh yeah, everybody loves Carl
Yeah,
and the Anunnaki and the
did
Cro-Magnons.
they like the episode, huh?
They did.
yeah.
All right. So I think there's a couple of things that like I missed, and a couple of things I want to just say like up front. Like if like I re-listened to the episode, and there are a couple of questions that I think you guys asked that I completely passed over and didn't really answer explicitly. So if that happens again, just sort of like stop me, and hopefully this will keep me a little bit more focused and organized. I'm
How
gonna sort of like power through like a few of the introduction and background from the last conversation to sort of answer some of those questions, and then we'll get right to the hypothesis and then the evidence that I found. And then like we're gonna save stuff for later because I don't really have that ready. All right, so all right, we talked about how there's this idea that our oldest religious traditions map onto the migration of Homo sapiens. That when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, walking across the face of the earth, that the daughters were born to them, and that the sons of God saw the daughters of men and that they were fair, and they took them as wives, and all that they showed. Anyway, we know this history, and the idea is that the possibility is that if interspecies hybridization is an explanation for our ancient mythologies, do they map onto our archaeologic and genetic understanding of Neanderthals as they go extinct? And the hypothesis is that I'm trying to present is that this is a clear explanation for the biblical accounts of the mighty men, the Gibberim, the men of renown that are mentioned in the Torah and the Old Testament. I mentioned briefly that the Elohim is a Hebrew phrase that translates directly to the sons of God, which is a clear sort of connection between the Anunnaki being the combination of these three people: Anu, the great sky father, Antu, the great sky mother, and then Ki, the earth mother. And as a result, the sons of God, the sons of Anu, are Enki and Enlil. And so
can
the
we
idea
go?
is
Can
that,
we go back to that last one? I know this is
yeah,
like kind of like a review, but just for the completely uninitiated,
do it.
what culture, what creed, what faith do these people come from? Not the people, these mythological figures.
So I would just assign these to the legacy of the last Neanderthals. So if you had to march your way all the way up, any person whose name ends with the letter U is a Neanderthal. And
And,
that's kind of a naming convention that's sort of weird. And I kind of rearranged the chart so that this is all clear. And all of the people with the name Key represent Homo sapien women, basically.
and is this is in like your conception of this, or is this kind of like
I suppose so. I mean, I'm
okay?
sure some smart like person that spent a long time has already figured this out.
Because
But
I'm used to these names being associated with the Sumerian
yeah.
culture. So
And so this is a Sumerian culture. And so the idea is that ancient Sumeria starts 7,000 BC, we say.
okay,
We say, but like how in the grand scheme of history and time, 7,000 BC is right close to 30,000 BC, which is when we think Neanderthals started to go extinct. So
okay,
they're right next to each other in terms of a historic timeline. Like,
got it.
why aren't the last civilizations and the most, ancient rulers Neanderthals? Like it makes sense that they would be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If,
And
you
that kind
know,
of catches people up to speed from the last episode. That's something we kind of talked about quite a bit. That these ancient mythological figures were Neanderthals.
yeah. And so the idea is that the story of the Anunnaki is really the story about Anu, this Neanderthal, having families with Ki and Antu. But if you the Antu flip her name around and it's basically the the sky mother name. Anyway, okay, so Enki and Enlil, we talked about gigantism and this formula for producing hybrid giants and then hybrid dwarfs, and that the liger is a combination of the male lion and then the female tiger. And because they're both the large versions, and in terms of whatever sexual dimorphism plays into this, where the tiger needs to have sexual dimorphism, where anyway, it's complicated, but there's a recipe for producing these types of genetic offspring that people have been taking advantage of for thousands of years. So that's why, the whole sort of mythology of the watchers taking the fallen angels, taking daughters of men and producing giants. It makes sense because you're sort of like, okay, that's kind of like the male lion taking the female tiger, producing a liger. And with that, there's all these genetic problems. Okay, so we've talked about that. We've talked about Goliath, and the biblical sort of, idea of Goliath is really, him as a representation of giantism. He only got to be 6 feet 9 inches, which is, an NBA basketball player at his
Right.
best. So we're not talking about 10-foot tall hominins, really. We're not talking about anything like astronomically huge, but large individuals is really what the history of our religions have talked about. But if you go way, way back into history, we do get to hominins that got to be as big as 8 feet tall. And this would be something like an ancient Homo erectus. And this is down, they started off in Africa, but this sample comes from Israel in the Levant, this Ubudea region. Now, this is just because I read all of the publications usually that I post on the Discord, and so one of the cool features of this, or points in this publication, they talked about the fact that large and small body hominins live together in Africa, and so that sort of got me onto a rabbit hole that sort of talks about the fact that at the same time, 500,000 years ago, we think that there was these two species of hominins living together. One was really large individual species, and then there's a small one. But the reality is that we kind of think it's probably just all Homo erectus, and that Homo erectus was known to be a chronospecies, which is that its morphology dramatically changes over time. And so the logical conclusion is that in Africa, Homo erectus eventually branched into archaic, early modern Homo sapiens. Nobody's talked about that, but that seems like a really reasonable sort of extrapolation to make. Okay, so we went into the video about Homo heidelbergensis with Lee Berger finding that femur down in South Africa.
Look at this.
Let's skip over that since this is kind of just still a refresh. And so here's where it's probably really important because it does get confusing, is this idea that there are two different waves of Homo sapien migration out of Africa. And this probably gets to a question from the Discord, which was, what's my opinion of the out of Africa hypothesis? And so just kind of quickly say, like, I think it's a branding term. Like we don't really have a way of knowing, but genetically, Homo sapiens definitely come from Africa. Our X and Y chromosome can be traced back to Africa, and multiple waves of migrations from the same region of Africa were Homo sapiens. So we know that for certain. Whether or not those are the most modern examples of Homo sapiens, we can't say. Whether or not hominins, like when apes started walking on two legs, if that happened in Africa, I don't know. It could have happened in Romania. It could have happened in other places, and then migrated into Africa where they became Homo erectus eventually. I don't know. There's not enough information, but
Have you?
genetically,
Sorry,
we came from Africa. That's definitely very true genetically.
I don't know how mainstream this book is, but have you ever heard of the Seven Daughters of Eve? There's
No,
this.
but that sounds awesome.
Yeah, there's this guy, Brian Sykes. He found this this man frozen in the ice in the Italian Alps. Well, he didn't find it. Somebody else found it, but he analyzed the DNA, and I think the individual was, I want to say, was died 6,000 years ago, something like that, maybe more. I don't remember, to be honest, so don't quote me. But anyway, he analyzed the mitochondrial DNA and the DNA more generally, and that he kind of came up with this hypothesis that all humans alive today can trace their lineage back to 7 women,
Yep.
and throughout Europe and Africa and stuff. So his work, I think, kind of generally supports the out of Africa idea. I was just curious if you'd heard of it.
My dog is going to start playing with this toy really loudly, and so I'm going to try to like get rid of this
Marduk.
toy.
That's
Are
funny.
there?
Yeah.
No,
So
hold
have
on.
you, Trevor,
So
have
I
you
agree
done
completely with that, and
I
ancestry
can't believe
DNA?
Carl is beating his dog in the background. He's
No,
literally
he's
kicking
not.
it.
People can see Trevor.
well, I'm not. I'm tossing the
You
toy.
fucking liar. That's cool. That sounds cool. Carl the abuser. No, just kidding.
Wait, I have. Wait, I have.
Have
I
you
have
done
ammunition.
ancestry, Trevor, at all?
What's that,
DNA?
Alfredo?
Have you done ancestry DNA analysis?
No, but in college I did this thing where I guess that's probably about the same idea. You take the little cheek swab and then
Yeah.
you look at the single nucleotide point mutations, and you can kind of figure out, like, at a given year where they think your ancestor, the majority of your ancestors, would have lived.
Right.
And it
Okay,
lined
cool.
up pretty much with what I had been told by
really?
my family. And
Oh.
then,
Oh,
you
that's
go
cool.
back far enough and everything originates like in Central Africa, basically. But
Right, basically, that's the bottom. Yeah, I've done it both with ancestry and family tree, which is the Y chromosome, so that way I can see my father's father's father,
nice.
and they traced it all the way back to Africa. And I also did the mitochondrial DNA analysis. It's quite interesting. Also, same thing, but they have different branches, and you can look into it's crazy. You can look into different, like the J group, the haplogroup, what it's called, and then-
Haplogroup, yeah.
right, and then you can trace it, and it's quite interesting.
It
Quite
is.
interesting.
It is amazing. It's an amazing science that we came up with. It's almost difficult to believe. Are you guys kind of familiar with how we think mitochondria ended up in our cells?
Well, yeah, I think so. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, Carl's not. It's wild. So the emergence of the eukaryotic cell is like this mystery that doesn't really. I mean, I'd say, I'm not even sure if you could call this a part of the theory of evolution, because I don't think evolutionary biologists really claim that evolution explains the origin of life, but rather, speciation. But let's just put that all under the same umbrella. The two big mysteries are, how did an information coding system evolve, and what was abiogenesis? Like, how did life start from non-life? Speciation is one thing, but where did the first living organism come from? And then, the, I guess, third big mystery is, where did eukaryotic cells come from, which are cells with mitochondria, cells that can do aerobic respiration. And so if you look at mitochondria, as we've been talking about, they have a different set of DNA that's separate from our cells' DNA. They have their own RNA, and they oversee their own replication. And so when you look at them in that context, they almost look like a living organism that lives inside of our cells. And the closest match to its DNA is the purple phylum of bacteria. So they think at some point, our very first common eukaryotic ancestor was a purple phylum bacteria that invaded a cell, and they somehow figured out a way to coexist, and it's a symbiote.
Man, I'm trying to jump ahead to the section where I talk about mitochondria, but I'm going to spoil it if I do.
Yeah, no,
So
don't do it. Don't. It's a teaser. It's a teaser.
Well, so what you're talking about is totally relevant to what I want to talk about, which is that Lilith, from wave one, Homo sapien migration out of Africa, these people go extinct. So I keep calling her Lilith because she's before Eve. Her mitochondrial DNA takes over in Africa 400 to 200,000 years ago. So this is a long, long time ago. So back in 300,000 years ago in Morocco, for Jebel Irhoud, which is, you see on the screen right now, it says 300,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's representational of the fossils known as Jebel Irhoud. And that would be analogous to these two people, Adam 1.0 and Lilith. And what the idea is that in Europe, we have Homo heidelbergensis that comes down, and I'm spoiling what's going to happen later, but it's appropriate to talk about now. They basically take Lilith back up to Europe, and her mitochondrial DNA takes over everywhere. All
Mm.
Neanderthals adopt Homo sapien mitochondrial DNA.
Lilith
It's
had it
weird.
going on, man. That's the only explanation.
Well, Lilith, according to the mythology, Lilith created the all of the monsters. Okay, so we'll get to this here. Um,
Oh,
so
how
the
interesting.
so here we go. So here's a mapping of Lilith and the mitochondrial DNA. So we see the darkest purple is the oldest fossils, which we actually call Homo heidelbergensis, so the predecessor of Neanderthals. Then we have the green. I forget these. Oh, this is the Cimadus. This is the really famous Neanderthal pit. Is in Spain. The green. And what happens is that over time, the yellow examples here, these all take over, and these are Homo sapien mitochondrial DNA examples of in Neanderthals. So like as time goes on, like 40, 50, 60, that onto their extinction, um, it's all Homo sapien mitochondrial DNA. And so one of the reasons we know this is likely true is that in northern Morocco, in the ancestry of northern Africans, their Neanderthal proportion is much higher um, in their subpopulation than it is in sort of European or Asian sort of ancestry. So I don't know if that made sense all the way, but the idea being is that Lilith mated with Homo heidelbergensis, and as a result, we have Neanderthals who developed dwarfism, similar to our sort of conversation earlier about ligers and Tegons. Tegons are the offspring of a small lion and a large tiger. So when that sexual dimorphism plays in, and the opposite of a tiger or a liger happens, then dwarfism occurs. And so that might be what happened to European Neanderthals, is that mitochondrial DNA from Lilith produced dwarfism in their species. And that it's conjecture, I'm going to say, that's conjecture. So
It's
that's conjecture, but also the same could be true for the fossils that we're assigning as Chinese archaics that are displaying these ultra modern Homo sapien features, but they predate any known migration of Homo sapiens into Asia. So we have the dragon man, whose cranium is the largest fossil skull ever discovered and has morphology that mirrors something we would consider to be modern. So much so that we think that the dragon man is our closest ancestor. And the hypothesis is that Adam 1.0 made his way to Asia, where he mated with probably Homo erectus, and as a result, something like the Dragon Man evolved. Um, so that's totally relevant. The mitochondrial DNA has so much to do with our energy production, its maternal cycle. It's we can imagine that it would largely regulate a lot of our ability to reproduce. So it seems reasonable that um, that could be a major factor for speciation and genetic change.
Did you know that in your tissue has mitochondria that is dormant, meaning that it doesn't produce NO? So
No.
one of the things that we use is biophotostimulation, which is called laser. So we basically shoot light into the tissue to produce NO for an analgesic effect.
Hmm.
It's quite amazing. It happens less than 30 seconds.
Oh, that's cool.
That is very cool. But it just tells you the power of mitochondria and how it still has an impact.
Well,
Um,
like with mitochondria, I think one of the latest theories with diabetes is that it's associated type 2 diabetes is that it's associated with mitochondrial dysfunction, where mitochondria start converting glucose less efficiently.
Yeah, a lot of diseases are related to mitochondrial dysfunction.
I got a
Yeah.
book on my desk right here. Mitochondria. You can't read it. Mitochondria and the Future of Medicine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
think. I mean, they think it's potentially linked to all sorts of things, Alzheimer's, all sorts of things. It is. It is just wild. I mean, sorry to pause us here for a minute, but I'm just. It's. I can't even picture a world where there's all of these hominids, first of all, that are capable of interbreeding. Like my understanding is that in the, like in the what's the word I'm looking for? Not ape. I'm just going to say ape, but that's incorrect. Primate, sorry. Is that there's not really a whole lot of interbreeding that occurs. Like I think bonobos and chimpanzees maybe, but and it's just wild to think that all over
I don't
the
like it.
earth there were all these hominids that were capable of interbreeding. It's just wild. And then yeah, obviously mitochondria, the whole origin of the eukaryotic cell is just all I don't know. It feels like we're just so far from the truth. But still, I love talking about it. So let's keep going.
I mean, until we rationalize the role of viruses in evolution, we're just guessing, really, we're just guessing. Like we have to really take account of viral genes and how they've changed the evolution of mammals.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I think it's like 10%
you
of human DNA is viral, right? Something like
that seems
that.
like a lot of genetic control right there.
Isn't that interesting? Wow, what a very cool, spooky theory that could be is that if you want to do some forced evolution on a planet, you just have a nice little well-crafted virus.
Yep.
I have
If
this.
you're an old monkey that just barely figured stuff out, but knows that there's a virus that causes weird things, you might
That's
start
funny.
playing around with
Or
that.
if
Like
you're, you're I mean, yeah, I
that
don't know.
virus.
I won't get into the real weird
Yeah,
stuff.
don't get into
I see
it.
how-
Trevor's, you were no, I was just you got a book, and I have this book that I highly recommend. You can
Oh
see
man,
it.
look at you. Virology.
Yeah, great stuff. John Carter. I took 2 quarters of this in upper division. That it blew my mind. This is eons ago. Well, I want to say about 10, 12 years ago.
You
Good
guys gonna
stuff,
make
man.
On that
you
on
guys gonna
that
make me have to drag out my library here in a second.
Yeah, come on,
That's
man.
right,
Not to
that's
be
right.
outdone. Just to correct myself, we're 8% virus. Humans.
Yeah.
So
the thing-
8%
cool
of the
thing
genome
can
is
be
virus.
lay dormant, and then it's just looking for a host. It's kind of like Ridley Scott's, Aliens, right?
Yeah.
Like it only works if it has a host. Like without a host, there you go.
What do we got?
Look at that.
Jack Kirby, New Gods.
My latest purchase.
Oh, that's so cool.
The comic shop opened up. I had to support. All right, so I'm going to hijack the conversation.
Well, it is your show. Sorry. I mean, like your interview, so please do.
What were you guys saying? I don't want to be rude.
Oh, just 8%.
Oh, you're good,
8% viral DNA. We figured it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is that Africa produces a lot of viruses, right? Like we all know viruses come from Africa, a lot of these really weird ones. We have Homo sapiens walking out of Africa from, one side to the other. They're going to come into contact with regions that have weird viruses. Like that seems pretty true.
And so is the idea that ancient hominids were just so much more mobile than other species of animals that they were subject to this escalated speed of evolution because of viruses?
Well, just that like we would have picked up, viruses that could have done things that changed our brains
Yeah, that makes sense.
or whatever, or gave women a placenta or any number of different anatomical structures that we have that are associated with viral genes. But the other way that we picked up genes, and I'm going to segue here, is through interspecies hybridization, where one species branched off, developed their own genes localized, and these might just be a small number of mutations in a specific gene that we never ever get, but they do, right? So these could just be small number of mutations, but that forces a different genetic expression. And so, as we mentioned, the dragon man, the Harbin skull, that very well could be blending of early archaic Homo sapiens here in blue. These people go extinct, so they're separate from the later Homo sapiens here on the right. So they could have interbred with Chinese archaics, and as a result, we have the dragon man, gigantic and super modern physiology. In the same way, later Homo sapiens we know interbred with the last Neanderthals in Europe, and gigantism produced the Cro-Magnon man, right? Even larger than the dragon man. And what I'm about to go through is a subspecies that anthropologists from the 1920s call Proto-Cro-Magnon. And that's why I love this image because I think this really kind of showcases what this hominin would have really looked like, where there's sexual dimorphism, women are smaller, but men take on gargantuan, primitive sizes, but have anatomically modern features. So, Alfredo, you asked about a size chart, and I had help from the Discord. Freeman Jack pointed me to a site that had a depiction of Cro-Magnon in comparison to
Perfect.
Neanderthals and archaic people. So I added to it to sort of show
Nice.
you what we have on the left is Homo erectus from Africa reached 8 feet tall, so at the largest size. Homo heidelbergensis, which we know walked out of Africa, according to Lee Berger, was somewhere in the 7 foot range. And then we have Cro-Magnon, now people of Europe, the largest modern humans. We, I don't think they were 7 feet, but they were probably 6'5" easily. They looked like professional football players. I mean, they were the meatiest of meat. You know what I mean? Like these people were jacked. Um, we have the Levant Neanderthals, and I'm going to differentiate them again from regular Neanderthals to say that they were larger than archaic humans. This would have been either first or second wave of humans. And then European Neanderthals were a little bit shorter than us. But we also have this weird, these super small hominins, the Homo erectus, habilis, and naledi. And they very well could, like I say, just be examples of sexual dimorphism that evolved on their own differently. Um, Talked about this. Um, do you guys want to know about Neanderthal genes?
Please.
All right, let's we're gonna play this clip in the proper order this time. So we're gonna take a little time out from me talking to hear some other people.
Ralph claimed that he had uncovered a secret history of Catalina Island, off the southern west coast of California. He had found evidence of a race of giants. After an excavation,
Yeah, buddy.
more than 3,000 skeletons were found, all 7 to 8 feet tall. Some documented to being over 9 feet. As the usual story goes, the skeletons were sent to the Hayes Foundation and Smithsonian for documentation, which have vanished to this day. One of the skeletons from Rob's photo collection had 6 fingers. Also, a second row of teeth seemed to be common amongst the giants found, but not all of them.
Okay, a second row of teeth was
Wow.
common. That's a super interesting factoid, right? Like if you're gonna make something up, like why that? Like supernumerary teeth is what that's known as. So let's hear about the genetics of Neanderthals. And this guy is one of my favorite people right now.
Evolutionary storms happen, but very little understanding of why and what. And that's kind of the description of where we are now. I'll tell you about one gene that we do maybe have some idea what's going on. This gene, we know kind of what it does because there are people who have one copy inactivated and they get something called cleidocranial dysplasia. If you have 2 copies inactivated, it's lethal. Then you won't be alive. But if you have 1 copy inactivated, you get this CCD. And this is characterized by these things listed here. The cranial sutures are delayed in closing. The clavicles have abnormalities. The rib cage is bell-shaped. And oftentimes you get crazy things wrong with the teeth. Supernumerary teeth, more and more sets of teeth just keep coming in. So frontal bossing looks like this. It's kind of a protrusion of the face. Frontal bossing is interesting from the context of Neanderthals, because if we saw a Neanderthal today, we might say they have frontal bossing. They had a protrusion of the face. The forehead stuck out a little bit.
Ralph claimed.
Okay. So I don't know if you caught that last image that they showed, but it was something super interesting, which was that anthropologist showed a depiction of Neanderthals taller than Homo sapiens. And I went through, like, that's the stuff that drives me crazy. And I'm just like, that's what I think. So I went through and did a reverse image search just on that clip to figure out where he got that image from. And what that is that is a visualization of all of the Neanderthal fossils reassembled into one skeleton. And what you see on the right here is we have a Neanderthal on the left and the Homo sapien on the right. And they're generally would be, is if you aggregated all of the fossils together from around the world, considered larger. And that seems reasonable given their skull size, given their bone density, given their muscle mass. It's reasonable to assume they should be larger in height and physical stature. Like saying Neanderthals are dwarfs is inappropriate. European Neanderthals are dwarfs. That's cool. I get it. They're reasonably shorter. But Levant Neanderthals, they're larger. And it's clear from the skull size. You know, this is a larger hominin than archaic or modern Homo sapiens. So yeah, as I said, Homo heidelbergensis was 7 foot. European Neanderthals were 5 foot. Levant Neanderthals were somewhere in the 6 foot range. And that seems pretty true from fossil record.
Do you know why? I'm sorry, Carl. Do you know why those pictures that you showed before in the prior slide? I know. Yeah. Are those AI rendition or
Oh, yeah.
like?
Yeah, sorry. A lot of
Do you
this
know?
stuff-
No, that's all good. I like it. Do you know why they made him like obese?
Well, they had barrel chests, like that gene, that
Oh,
one gene that run X2, I think is the name of the gene.
I see. I see.
And I forget, I need to make certain to call the anthropologist out by name because that guy is rad.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they have a barrel chest, and that's something that differentiates them from us. We have a
Got it.
straighter chest, and they have a barrel shape to their chest.
Mhm. Thank you.
So around the world, like I talked about, we have different hominins. Homo erectus made its way to Asia, Heidelbergensis to Australia, and then we had Harbin. I think we've already gone over this, and I'm sorry for the listener if this is repeating. The Harbin skull was huge. We talked about this, and we talked about why it is considered to be our closest genetic relative based on its morphology. So here in red, we have the Harbin skull, and on the right, we have the Homo sapien clade, and then on the left, we have the Neanderthal clade. And it's just kind of showing that in the grand scheme of things, Homo antecessor is more closely related to Neanderthals, and the Harbin skull is more closely related to us. That's what apparently looks like. Okay, so I won't play this video. We're just going to gloss over this. I think the main point is that it's important, for at least for my conversation, to explicitly define extinction as what happens to a species when the X and Y chromosome disappear from the available genetic pool, right? Like when the Y chromosome can no longer reproduce, that species is gone. Like they're extinct. And if we talked about things in terms of anthropology along those lines, it would be a lot simpler to define species. But for whatever reason, anthropologists don't do that. This is important information. This is new. So I'm trying to, all of what I've just gone through is to get to this. It's important to give background information as to what we know about why Neanderthals went extinct. And that's important. There's a research publication called Homo sapiens Y chromosome spread through Neanderthal populations after early mating. New findings may solve the decades-old mystery of why researchers have been unable to find Neanderthal Y chromosome. We began to wonder, if there were any male Neanderthals, jokes Janet Kelso, a computational biologist at the Max Planck Institute, yada, yada, yada. But in a technical breakthrough, small chunks of modern men's Y chromosomes were used to fish out and bind with DNA from archaic Neanderthal men's Y chromosomes. The new method works because Neanderthals and modern human Y chromosomes are mostly similar. The DNA probes reel in the few base pairs that differ. So that's super interesting. Like I've been wondering about whether or not the sperm gene in the Y chromosome is similar between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. And this is kind of indicating what they're talking about is really just a consistency about specific nucleotides mutating to differentiate the genes of the Y chromosome. Do you guys, does that make sense to you from what we just read?
Yeah. What's the explanation for that? For them being so similar?
Speciation, an original source.
Okay, so they're just not that distant of ancestors. Their common ancestor is not that distant.
Well, distant enough that we never get those mutations, but only Neanderthals did, is kind of the point. And so that's how genetically we're different in this one gene. And it's kind of what they're saying.
Wow.
And so what they're saying is that they have a hard time finding Y chromosomes, but they find plenty of information about Neanderthal women. Okay, so to answer the mystery of what happened to the Neanderthal Y chromosome, researchers probed the fragmentary Y chromosomes of 3 Neanderthal men from Belgium, Spain, and Russia who lived about 38,000 to 53,000 years ago, and 2 male Denisovans, close cousins of Neanderthals, who lived in a Siberian cave 46,000 to 130,000 years ago. When researchers sequenced the DNA, they got a surprise. The Neanderthal Y looked more like humans than Denisovans. The best scenario to explain the Y pattern is that early modern humans, men, mated with Neanderthal women more than 100,000 but less than 350,000 years ago, according to the team's computational models.
Interesting.
So
they're literally related. The offspring are half Homo sapien, half Neanderthal, so that's why they look so similar. Wow.
Yeah, and what they're saying is that women preferred the Y chromosome of Homo sapiens.
I get it.
And so that matches very much what I was trying to allude to in the last episode with the mythology of the Pleiades, that the mythologies talk about this other group of people and some of their women fall in love with mortal human men. And so that's the narrative that may be alluded to in our genetic ancestry of Neanderthals.
And he happens a lot in a lot of mythologies, right? From different regions, like mortals falling in love with, gods or demigods.
A lot of demigods.
Carl, give me 2 minutes. I'm sorry. You know what I find super interesting about just this overall is there's this issue in the neo-Darwinism, which is random mutation is not sufficiently explanatory to explain the amount of speciation we've seen or the rate of speciation. So this kind of provides a second, I guess still Darwinian mechanism for speciation and evolution, and a mechanism to kind of explain how we get so many different species so quickly. I'm not sure how far back we can take this idea of hybridization, but I would assume it goes back pretty far. And so maybe this is how we get so many species, because this really, I think most evolutionary biologists would tell you this, like if you weren't recording, like mutation and natural selection just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't. Random mutation is rare. It's not this like thing that can drive speciation rapidly across the planet. The whole viral DNA thing is interesting. That certainly could drive, changes in DNA. But this interspecies hybridization thing, this is like obviously takes it to a whole other level. You can get huge changes to genomes over time. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, so here's something else interesting though. So like I was saying, the takeover of the Y chromosome mirrors what I was referring to with Lilith mitochondrial DNA. The same study talks about that a little bit. The appearance of the unusual Y chromosome parallels another genetic takeover in Neanderthal remains dating from 38,000 to 100,000 years ago, contain the maternally inherited mitochondrial DNA of a modern human woman instead of the ancestral or the ancient and Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA found in earlier fossils, so Denisovans or Homo heidelbergensis. In the case of mitochondrial DNA being replaced, an early Homo sapien woman likely interbred with a Neanderthal man more than 220,000 years ago, and their descendants, aka European Neanderthals, carried the modern Homo sapien mitochondrial DNA. And that exactly parallels the mythology of fallen angels, where this group of men took Homo sapien women as wives. So we have that mythology playing out once again in the genetic record of our ancestry with Neanderthals. And that's, I think, really, really effing interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So what happened in Europe is basically this. We had a Neanderthal population 40 plus thousand years ago that went extinct. They went extinct because the Neanderthal men started looking like Homo sapien men. And that's basically what happened when they lost their Y chromosome. The women preferred features of a Homo sapien man sexually, let's say, as one theory, but there's a number of other genetic theories that are directly related to the possibility that Lilith, her mitochondrial DNA, was better suited to pair with Homo sapien DNA than it was with Neanderthal DNA. And as a result, because of early introgression of Lilith mitochondrial DNA within the European Neanderthals, it might have contributed to their extinction because Neanderthal women with Lilith mitochondrial DNA might have been better paired with Homo sapien men. And so that might have contributed to Neanderthal extinction. But there were other things, and this is kind of goes into that. But there are other things that are a reality about, the slide's messed up. Sorry about this. Never mess with, or never have animated slides in a presentation, right? Is that what they say?
Looks good to me,
Not for
man.
us, man. You're good.
All right, let's try this again. I'll fix it as I go. So another thing contributed to Neanderthal extinction, and it's pretty clear that they had long durations of genetic isolation where they did not interbreed with any group outside. So the suggestion is that I think there's a paper that comes out that you all might recognize where it talks about Thorin, the last European Neanderthal. It's named after one of the hobbits from Lord of the Rings. So Thorin, as you see on the map over here, he stayed in isolation. He and his people stayed in isolation on their own in Europe for 105,000 years. They didn't interbreed and they didn't mix DNA with anybody at all. And as a result, interbreeding likely contributed to European Neanderthal extinction. Add to that, sorry, it doesn't matter. Add to that the fact that they carried a lot of diseases in their DNA, at least diseases in us, and they probably suffered from the same diseases, but they also exhibited cannibalism. And we know that from remains that were found in Neanderthal caves where they cut bones similar to how they would treat reindeer or a horse. So we know that they were cannibals. They were, as weird as it might sound, they had culturally acceptable policies that we would today consider to be inappropriate. Let's just say that. And they were cannibals. Cannibalism happened. So I think it's important to take those factors into consideration when we try to think about them culturally, because we know those things happened to the Neanderthals. All right. So this is a new video clip, and this is an old video clip which I won't play from last time.
Interest.
This is a clip that talks about how we inherited cognitive traits from Neanderthals. I'll just leave it at that. So in Europe, as a result of the Cro-Magnon people being hybrids of archaic and Neanderthals, we kept their big brains, basically. Cro-Magnons have huge brains. Their brains, I don't have my notes available or visible, but their brains were huge, really, really large. They were as big as Neanderthals. So when these two brain sizes sort of like fit together, the Cro-Magnon brain popped out and their brains were really, really large. So they were conceivably, and because we know genes for intelligence come from Neanderthals, they very likely were super smart for all of the reasons we estimate how brain size correlates to intelligence. So there's good reason to think that we developed a lot of really important things from Neanderthals and our interbreeding with them. This is from Freeman Jack. This is also, when we talk about European Cro-Magnons, this is also why anthropologists hate the topic, because it quickly spreads, slides into what were once treated as racist ideologies and ideas, where there was a race of people that was superior, Homo superior, than any other hominin that lived. Now,
Squat thrust 890. Dang, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by that.
How to do that?
Yeah, facts are facts. I mean, these guys were football players back when football playing involved javelins and survival.
Swimming speed 10 miles per hour. All right.
He's running 30. I like this.
Yeah. Amongst all of the advanced versions of Homo sapien, these are the biggest that there are, as a culture.
So we're lame compared to that. Take that.
We are
30 miles per hour. Damn.
We are lame compared to that. And they displayed the same sexual dimorphism that our archaic ancestors did.
Are these the mighty men of renown?
These would be mighty men of renown. This is what I would suggest to be mighty men of renown. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Now, we talked about last time the emergence of the chin, and this is important just to hit really quickly because I think it's really significant, is that as we interbred with Neanderthals and our different skull and face bone structure tried to figure itself out morphologically, out popped the chin. And they say that it was a result of the skull decreasing in size, and that's just a feature. It's what we know happens in the skull as we go through puberty, so it's reasonable to think that the same might be true for interspecies hybridization. So on the left, we see that all of these ancient hominins, none of them have a chin, and then early modern humans have a chin, and then modern humans have this very pronounced chin. There's also features associated with the mandible junction that aren't terribly evident in this image, but part of the other thing about that's interesting is the straightness of our teeth compared to archaic humans. We'll get into that. So, like I said, Cro-Magnon were amazing. Like, there is no way around it. European Cro-Magnons from 40,000 to 10,000 years ago, these were the people. These were the people that were creating art out of stone. They were depicting animals. They were creating religious iconography. They associated their knowledge base with reproduction, natural cycles of life. But like with everything that we learned from Neanderthals, they also picked up something from them, like religion. They took the religion of the Neanderthals and the burial practices of Neanderthals, the belief in an afterlife, and they integrated that as their own, much the same way they integrated Neanderthal art, much the same way they integrated Neanderthal housing structures and things like that. So the hypothesis is that our religion actually comes from Neanderthals. Okay, do you guys want to hear a new clip and stop hearing me talking, or do you guys want to pause it really quick and talk?
I enjoy both, but let's hear the clip.
All right, so this is from the Demystify Science podcast, and this is one of my favorite intellectuals right now, Dr. Diana Pisalko.
So this would be something that's like proto-human, pre-human type. Fascinating. And people in religious studies actually do say that religion predates Homo sapiens.
Mm.
The reason they say that is because archaeologists and paleontologists have found that Neanderthal communities actually had funerary rituals, which would indicate that they believed in somewhat of an afterlife or something like that.
Okay. So she just reiterated what I had. We probably could skip that. All right. But it's really interesting. They actually talk about the Pleiades, and I won't go into that. They basically reiterated everything we talked about with the Pleiades.
Ooh, España.
Okay, so we alluded to, I think in the last episode at the end, significance of the cultural significance of the overlap of Neanderthals with Homo sapiens and the Cro-Magnon people being the byproduct of that. And we know that this is very likely the case in places like Spain, where we have this map here. The red dots represent locations of Neanderthal fossil remains. The blue dots are Homo sapiens. So in Spain, they overlapped in time and geographic location. So we know they interacted, but very closely.
And
how much we don't quite know.
What time frame was this?
40,000 to
10,000
10,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and one of the interesting things is that interconnecting all of those locations are megalithic structures, giant dolmen, the places that funerary practices were established as locations to place your dead were separated halfway in between the locations where Neanderthals and Homo sapiens lived. So they took their dead somewhere else, and that sort of rings true with the Russian mythologies of what dolmens were, and that they were created by giants for their little people to sleep in. And that's very, so it matches the mythology. The last thing is that this same connection happens up in France, where megalithic structures coincide with the locations of the Cro-Magnon people. And so, best that I can tell, these are the megalithic builders from 8,000 plus years ago. Is that these are the people that knew what to do with stone. They had a legacy of living with stone that we don't really understand. But that's, 10,000 years ago, these people were making big things with stones.
10,000 years ago, that would be after Younger Dryas, right?
Yeah, right in the middle of it, after or before, right around that time.
So this was kind of an Ice Age civilization going through the Younger Dryas, and then when do we kind of get anatomically modern humans?
Same time.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Same time.
much sooner. I mean, according to the multi-regional hypothesis, anatomical modernism springs up wherever hybridization happens.
Okay, and so this kind of Cro-Magnon subspecies, their DNA is just sort of blended in to Homo sapiens over time, and they kind of disappear? Or
Yes, no. I mean, depending on how long ago they lived, we only have so much DNA from prehistory. If they lived before that time where we started collecting that DNA, no, we don't have any record of them genetically. And that's kind of the case for these megalithic builders, these ancient Cro-Magnon people from 40 plus thousand years ago. I think when it comes to like maybe having this prototypical lighter skin, red hair, blue eyes, maybe that stuff, it was inherited. But that stuff happened really late. That happened genetically, I think, within the last 20,000 years. So there's a time period of potential Neanderthal interaction that happened much longer before it, that didn't include those mutations. So the Neanderthals may not have looked that way. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So at the same period of time, and possibly the same region, we have, I guess you'd call them what? Regular Homo sapiens, Cro-Magnon, and Neanderthals cohabitating, potentially?
Yeah, regular Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Cro-Magnons. That's right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I certainly get the idea where that could lend itself pretty well to some of these stories. I mean, we're talking about a time frame that's potentially, well, much of the topic we cover tonight is pre-Diluvian, antediluvian.
Yeah, pre-Diluvian,
And
but
so,
stretches right up to the doorsteps of it. It's Diluvian to some degree, but I don't like have like that's where it sort of makes the religious connection pretty blurry, you know, like hard to sort of connect the dots in terms of, the people that we have fossil remains for and any type of religious history
right.
other than the geographic location and the potential for them to see fossils at that specific location. But do you guys want to get into that? Let's do that because I think that's the next step. Do you guys want to take a pause?
I mean,
Where we at?
we don't edit, so
Yeah, I knew that.
if we take a pause, there's just going to be a 5-minute break.
All right, I think I can keep rolling with it.
I love this picture.
Before I need a little break here. So
we've been going at it for an hour. We'll do another maybe 10 minutes and then probably a good stopping point. And,
oh no, fuck no. We just got into what I like prepared for this conversation.
Okay. Keep going.
Should we do part 3 then?
Dude, there's gonna be. Let's not even limit this. Okay,
Cliffhanger.
Okay.
The more that we talk about other things, the less we talk about. I can talk about this. Okay, so the hypothesis I've been presenting is that the Neanderthals inspired the old gods, the Anunnaki, possibly even the pre-dynastic Egyptians. So if that hypothesis holds true, we should see specific evidence in our geologic and mythologic record. We should see that the origins of our mythologies stretch back to a time when Neanderthals were still alive, when we first started walking the earth 200,000 years ago. We should have mythologies that stretch that long, which we talked about. We should see that interspecies cohabitation and technology transfer between Homo sapiens and seafaring archaic hominins occurred along our migration routes out of Africa. And we should see examples of gigantism from interspecies hybridization. And then lastly, our ancient mythology should reflect our archaeologic and genetic understanding of Neanderthals. All right. So we know, like I said from the last time, that the Pleiades, the mythology of the Pleiades stretches more than 100,000 years. So we were collecting mythologies when Neanderthals were still around. We talked about that last time, so I won't belabor it. Now, here's some new information. We know that interspecies cohabitation happened in the Levant, and that when it happened, we shared our technology with other species. The Nesher-Ramla people is a hominin species that lived in the Levant between 140 and 120,000 years ago. They're the last surviving population of Middle Pleistocene hominin from Europe that had fully mastered specific types of technologies that was really only known to Homo sapiens. These findings provide archaeological support for cultural interactions between different human lineages during the Middle Paleolithic, suggesting that admixture between Middle Pleistocene Homo and Homo sapiens had already occurred by this time. So we know we were sharing genes and technology with hominins in the Levant 140,000 years ago. We have genetic, morphologic, and archaeologic evidence that this was the region where we were sharing what stone tool making was. And because these hominins were also from a stock of seafaring people, it's likely if they shared their technology with us, excuse me, if we shared our tool making technology with them, that they shared their seafaring technology with us. We know that this is a study called Early Seafaring Activity in the Southern Ionian Islands, the Mediterranean Sea. We know that Neanderthals were all throughout Greece and the Ionian Islands. We have their remains on these islands, which have always been separate from mainland. The only way to get to these islands is through a boat. We have Neanderthal remains through Crete, through Cyprus. So they were all throughout this area as a seafaring culture. Of course, we have the Nesher-Ramla people not too far away in the Levant sharing technology. Why wouldn't one culture continue to share their technology, like how to survive a flood and build a boat? This is the type of thing they could have told us. We talked about gigantism being a common feature between species hybridization last time. And obviously, we talked about the Levant. We know the Levant was the region genetically that 100,000 years ago, interspecies hybridization happened. And that would have looked like a Neanderthal living in a cave who had developed cave art and whatever technologies were specific to that region. That Neanderthal would have said, "Hey, welcome to my tribe. This is how I made cave art." And Homo sapiens would have said, "That's really interesting." And then they improved it. And that's just the legacy of Homo sapien Neanderthal interactions. Okay, new stuff. All right, this is the Levant. I'm going to frame the Levant in terms of our cultural connection to this place biblically. Okay, so just bear with me in this clip.
And Elijah goes, and this is where we get the setup for the contest in verse 19. Elijah says, "Now therefore have all Israel assemble for me at Mount Carmel, with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." Is there any importance here with the connection of Mount Carmel? You know, you could have this contest anywhere, but Elijah here is saying, let's go meet at this mountain. Why?
Yeah, Mount Carmel has a long history of a couple of things. One, it's full of caves, and so it's a place that traditionally people hide out, including bad guys, right? So it's earlier in 1 Kings 18, you have Obadiah. It says, Obadiah is working with maybe for King Ahab, but he's a devout worshiper of the Lord, and he's actually helping to hide prophets of the Lord. And where do you hide them? You're going to hide them in these caves, right? Now, in addition to being a place where people hide out, so it's a place, where if you're trying to get away from people, you hide in these caves, it has a long tradition of being, let's call it a holy place, a sacred place, all the way back to ancient Egypt. So the Egyptians saw this as a place that was considered holy, right? A sacred mountain, but even down into the Greek period, right? Iamblichus talks about Pythagoras, and right, Pythagoras with the theorem, right? But also he was a religious leader,
right?
And he talks about going to the mountain. There was an oracle there. Vespasian is affiliated with the mountain. So all the way down into the 1st century, Mount Carmel has this history of being a holy mountain, both in the Greek tradition, but also in the Jewish and Christian tradition. So this has a history of being a place where, again, tall mountain overlooking the water, right, right on the coast. This is going to be a natural site where you're going to be elevated and closer to the heavens. It's a holy mountain.
All right, I'm going to stop that there. It goes on, and it's going to go through the biblical interpretation of Elijah. And what it is if in the callback to the Brothers of the Serpent podcast, Marty talks about this in one of his most recent episodes, where he talks about Mount Carmel is the location where our understanding of polytheism changed over to monotheism, where Yahweh is the God of Elijah, and he alone goes up as a prophet against all of these hundreds of other prophets of Baal and all of these other gods, and says, your gods are nothing. They mean nothing here. They can't do anything. And says, if your gods can do something, they'll burn down this altar. And their gods couldn't do it. And, Elijah, through probably modern science, uses water to burn down an altar. As weird as that sounds, but exothermic reactions were known back then. So anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that Mount Carmel is the location where our understanding of the gods changed, where the old gods disappeared, and what was left was this monotheistic interpretation that would later become Roman Catholicism. That would be this idea that gods were no longer about tribes and about cities and rulerships and kings and pharaohs. God was this individual that created the universe for us that we serve, and that was this location. That's where this happened. So these are the caves where Elijah proved Yahweh was the only God. And so,
And Elijah goes.
all right, so let's get past this slide. All right, sorry about this.
That's super interesting, by the way.
Right, isn't it? It's really, really interesting that like the caves that have these fossil remains of Neanderthals and ancient Homo sapiens and the transition between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are the same caves where the Torah and our ancient Hebrew brothers and sisters like developed this concept of gods existing, battling each other, and then there being one type of God that resulted. Like it's just really fascinating coincidence that all of these things took place at the Mount Carmel location. So what Mount Carmel is a series of caves. Like they said, robbers and criminals lived in these caves because they could hide out there. It's just a network of them, evolved, eroded into limestone. So I found this PDF publication from 1929, The Stone Age of Mount Carmel, and it goes through the fossil discovery of the Tabun Cave here in the middle, and then the School Cave, and it's spelled Skhul, so it's a little confusing. I'm gonna try to say school whenever I'm referring to the fossils from this cave, and it talks about the anomalies that happened that they find in these fossils. So, of course, what I do, given what I'm looking for, when I find this PDF, I open it up and I'm like, okay, show me, do you guys look at hybrids? And sure enough, they talk about hybrids being as a result of these fossils, talk about hybridization, hybridity as a topic of interest in the PDF. It also comes up is the word ultra in terms of how they hyphenate fossil remains. It's ultra XYZ, ultra Neanderthal or ultra Neanthropic, which is a term that refers to Palestinian or modern human. And so ultra modern is another term that comes up when you go through the archive here. So here's the type of things that they'll say. So we now describe the head of the man who is most representative of the school type from ancient Palestine. Again, probably not. This is probably going to get censored because we're going to talk about Israel being ancient Palestine.
You're trying to get us banned, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, it's ancient history. All right, so school is a type of ancient Palestinian, a type which the majority of the features of the skull, body, and limbs are neanthropic. Neanthropic means modern, as distinct from the paleoanthropic or neanderthaloid. So modern versus Neanderthals. The school 4 was a man of about 1,738 millimeters or 5 feet 8.4 inches. So really, really tall for an archaic human. And lived to be about 45 years of age. So lived to be a very old age. So the people that lived in the school cave were well taken care of. They lived to an old age, relatively. Excuse me. And reached a large height with a big brain and a massive face. Here's another instance. Indeed, the temporal or mandibular region of the school 4 may be described as ultra modern. Like the explanation for the fossils that come from ancient Levant suggests that modernity happened where hybridization occurred. Okay, so here we start talking about mandibles. So of course I went and looked at the chin, right? Like, of course. Like why would I waste my time with any other anatomical feature? I want to know about the chin. Um, there are almost three complete adult mandibles, two from the Taboon. So the older cave, the one that has more Neanderthal-like fossils, and one from the school cave. There's actually two mandibles that we'll look at, with a greater part of another skull mandible. Like I just said, there's a bunch of others. There's a child that's very interesting to talk about as well. So here's the mandibles. Let's take a look. So we don't like they have photographs, but it's easier to look at the medical illustrations that they did, which are really amazing. All right, so this is Taboon 1. This is a female Neanderthal. They have a complete skeleton of this woman. She was buried. So and because of the numbering, she's at the top layer of soil. So she's Taboon 1, so she's high up. Now here's Taboon 2. A huge jaw. They talk about the jaw being much larger than Taboon 1, and it has an enormous chin. Not only does it have an enormous chin, its mandible is it's where it connects to the skull is a modern shape versus this angular shape. Its dentation is orthogonal. And so these are all features of modernism. Now, this is a woman, and we know about sexual dimorphism and that men will be larger than women. But we have over in the school cave, we have school 4. This is the fossil that, as we go along, pay attention to this as a representation of modern Homo sapien morphology, but incredibly modern for its time. We see not only the pronounced chin, but we see and the mandibular joint, but we see its dentation is even more vertical and more straight and less primitive. Now, school 4 is at a specific layer that's, all of these fossils, they say, live generally around the same time. But if we have to think about a different cave, this is school 4. There are fossils that exist above it, and there are fossils that exist below it. School 5 is the other important mandible to take note of. This is another mandible that is older than school 4, but displays less modern features. If you notice that its dentation is more sort of pronated, it has a less pronounced chin. I don't know what this anatomical structure is, but you can see this little hook at the bottom is a little bit smaller. Anyway, it's a little bit less modern, but more modern than a Neanderthal chin. Okay, now I really need to see what
I don't know what that anatomical feature is either, and I'm a little embarrassed because I taught anatomy for 8 years. But Carl,
yeah.
Don't get
If
mad.
I talk you guys out,
Don't get mad at me. We're gonna have to do a part 3, okay?
son of a bitch.
We
wasted too much time with the first part.
No, it wasn't a waste. It was we're slow. We're not as fast of processors as you. We take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So I sincerely hope you'll be willing to do a part 3 with us, and that you will humor our interjections throughout.
All right, we're gonna skip all of it. Just stick with me till the very end so we can just not do.
You've got a punchline. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this. We're going right to the skulls. This is Taboon 1. And we can see that this definitely has, a Neanderthal morphology. It's oblong and it's
what is this one? What did you call it?
This is Taboon 1. This is the topmost female.
Okay.
Below her is school. In the school cave we have the individual that we just looked at with the somewhat modern chin, and then we have school 4, which is the more modern version that is above school 5. So we see that there's this linear progression of modernity from Neanderthals to school 4.
As we move
Uh,
up.
Yeah, as we move up. We skipped over a whole bunch of stuff, but what we end up finding out years later is that there's another cave nearby that has anatomically modern hominins in the Kafwe cave. Those anatomically modern skulls match the hominins found at Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. So we know that Jebel Irhoud basically made their way over to the Levant, and as a result, School 5 in this ultra modern form was produced. So that's kind of the story, is that modern skeletal morphology and brain structure happened multiple locations around the world as a result of hominin interbreeding with Homo sapiens.
And for people just listening, I'll read kind of the conclusion here. So, ultra-modern Proto-Cro-Magnon people from the Levant inspired the mythology of the old gods and the Anunnaki. Yeah, I mean it makes sense, man. I can't argue that. It fits the narrative, the common narrative around the world. So it's super interesting. It's fascinating. Ooh, and there's a teaser.
The teaser is next time, if you guys want to talk about the actual mythologies themselves. I think that the thing to do is to see if there's any indication of now what we know about Neanderthals, about their genetic and archaeological history, if there's any evidence of that in our mythologies. And if there is, then I think that we have a really, really strong argument that the old gods that inspired the Torah and the ancient Sumerian mythologies were Neanderthals.
And with that,
ladies
and gentlemen, yeah, thanks, man. That was awesome. That's super cool. Man, you're just a wealth of knowledge here, and I think Alfredo and I just don't have the horsepower to do more than an hour at a time. I know all these podcasts, Joe Rogan, Brothers of the Serpent, everybody does 3 hours.
What they do for a living.
Lex Friedman, 3 hours. Yeah, that's a good point.
I have like 2 jobs, every day.
But I no matter what the topic is, I think our longest episode is an hour 20 minutes. This will now be our new longest episode.
Well, I wasted too much time at the start to do the recap.
Stop it. We were talking about whether or not
it was better this time for people. This is Adam 2.0.
We spent 40 minutes talking about whether or not the moon landing was real. Don't give yourself a hard time. That was our fault.
That's right.
But anyway, Carl, thank you. We appreciate you, and we look forward very much to part 3. And I want to talk to you about your future book that you're going to be writing soon.
Oh, nice.
All right. Take it easy, Carl. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Enjoy your night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Amazing.
Oh, he's so smart.
Carl is a wealth of
He's so smart.
information.
I hope he doesn't feel like we were trying to rush him off. I just I saw you over there. You're blitzed out of your mind. You finished your whiskey.
You're gonna throw me under the bus, you jerk.
Well, I didn't want to throw myself under the bus.
No, of course not. No.
What do you think? What do you think, though? What do you think of all that?
I think it's just fair for the. I want to be as excited. I just ran out of whiskey. That's all.
I don't know what's going to happen.
For another hour had I had another bottle of whiskey, but I literally just fucking ran out. Look at that shit.
No, sorry. What do you think about the conclusion, though? Do you agree?
What do I think about the conclusion?
Do you
I have many questions.
Because, hey, girl, my kids are like, dude, when are you going to be done? Almost done, sweetheart.
Dude. Like we have a life behind this.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, there's 2 ways you could look at it. One is it kind of takes some of the mystery away, like some of the excitement away from these old mythological stories, right?
Correct.
But then at the same time, not really. I mean, all the Bible really says is that there were giants. Okay.
And the fact that you mentioned, I think, one episode about there were other humans outside the Garden of Eden.
Right. Yes, I love that. And so I still think there's some room for magic here. And if you start this idea of that maybe viruses were the delivery vehicles for evolution is a very cool, like,
Oh, that's nice.
take to think about how a creator could do a little manipulation, a little excitement.
I like that. A little magic.
So
a little magic.
I think there's room for magic either way.
Remind me to ask Carl. And he's probably, when he's listening to this, like, oh man, how come he didn't ask that? I fucking forgot. I'm drunk. Remind me to ask him why we talk about, and maybe you can tell me, a lot of Lilith versus Eve. You know, it always goes back to Lilith, but nothing about Eve.
Yeah,
So
I don't
I'm a little confused about that.
I don't know the answer necessarily, but I think why he's interested in Lilith is that she is a woman that predates
Eve?
female Homo sapiens.
So Eve is Homo sapiens and Lilith is not?
I don't know, man.
Exactly. So remind me. I didn't want to. I didn't want to cut him off.
We need to
I
ask him
know.
next time.
He was like on a roll. I didn't want to cut him off.
Well, you know what it is. I told he had an hour of material. I said, all right, we got an hour show, and then we talked about the moon landing for 30.
Yeah, and then we went for 2 hours. No, that's cool, man. So remind me to ask him that on part 3, whenever that is.
Yeah, I'm super curious. I did have that question, and it's unclear to me: is Lilith kind of like a metaphorical group of women, or is she
Correct.
literally one woman? And he
Exactly.
mentioned her being literally taken into Europe, so that kind of made me sound like it was one woman. But anyway, we're just a couple knuckleheads trying to understand Carl's breadth and depth of knowledge on this topic.
It's amazing how much time he has spent on it.
Oh, you can
The slides look really good.
you can tell there's some
And he
passion there.
didn't. That's the kind of professor you want to be when you don't read the
Yes.
slides.
Yes.
No one wants that motherfucker.
He'd make a great professor on this topic.
Oh yeah, he's just elaborating on the slide.
I'm going to get him
That's
to read
amazing.
7 Daughters of Eve because I think it will inspire him to write his own book. I think that'd be fascinating.
Oh, nice.
But
Nice. When I grow up, I want to be like him as far as delivery.
me too, man. So anyway, go to our merch store, you cheap fucks. Sorry. Sorry. You might need to edit that out. You might need to edit that out, Alfredo.
You might want to eat.
It's past
man.
my bedtime.
You're hungry?
It's past my bedtime.
Nice.
So yeah, go to our merch store, buy lots of stuff. There will be a Carl the Cro-Magnon shirt soon. Very excited about that. It's Indiana Jones holding a Neanderthal skull.
Oh, dude, that's
ChatGPT did
epic.
not disappoint. And yeah, send us some money. I'm gonna have a book coming out in 2 months, so save up so you can buy that book.
I'm excited about that, man.
I'm excited about it too, dude. It's
I
shaping
want you
up.
to sign it.
Oh, of course.
Thanks. First edition, bitch.
Yeah, I'll put a little wallet photo of me in there for you with a heart on it.
I don't know about that.
All right, dear listeners and viewers, this will be a video episode. Sorry for the janky video. I'll figure it out sooner or later. Alfredo, my friend.
My friend. Salute you.
Nos
Thank you.
vemos.
Great guest. Nos vemos.
Soon.